Hey, gang. Bill Sheridan here, Chief Communications Officer with the Maryland Association of CPAs, host of our Future Proof podcast. Good to see you. We're kicking off something a little bit different today, and I'm glad that you're here with us to kind of help us kick this off. So, what are we doing? We are here's what we're doing. This is part of our contribution, I guess you'd call it, to the conversation about accounting's talent shortage. You've all heard about the talent shortage, right? A lot of debates happening throughout the profession right now about the best ways to address our depleted talent pipeline. And I mean, there are reasoned arguments, thoughtful ideas throughout the profession. Really, the latest voice to join the fray is the National Pipeline Advisory Group. That's an independent national group made up of 22 stakeholders from throughout the profession. They recently drafted 6 strategies for improving talent recruitment and retention. All good ideas. And look, everyone is talking about it, searching for answers, which is a good thing, right? The more voices, the more ideas, the more potential for success, I guess. And here at the MACPA, we've got a few ideas of our own. The main one is this: we believe it's time to kind of change the narrative about this profession. Time to stop talking about what we do, and time to start talking more about why we do it and get back to the passion, the purpose behind this profession. And so that's what we're doing here. Once a week going forward, you're going to hear from a different CPA, and they're going to tell their story about why they got started in the profession, why their work matters, why they're still passionate about this profession, and some words also for young folks and students about why they might want to consider accounting for a career, because the work does matter. It really does, and CPAs really do make a difference. And these stories are going to show us how. So I'm excited. I'm excited about doing this. Yeah, I think you're in for a treat here. We've got a lot of great conversations with a lot of great CPAs, each of whom has a different story to tell, and a unique perspective about the purpose behind this profession. And we're kicking things off this week with a conversation with Janice Stucke. Janice is CFO of Achieving the Dream, which is a Silver Spring, Maryland based organization that's dedicated to ensuring that all students can access learning that propels them into rewarding careers. And they do that by guiding institutional change, influencing public policy, generating knowledge, and engaging the public. And you can learn more at achievingthedream.org. But now I'm really excited about this, kicking off this series of conversations. Here to share her story and her CPA purpose is Janice Stucke.
So it's a bit of a winded story because I started off in grants administration, program administration. So I was the person that was handed the budget and said, go implement it in the field. So I worked with refugees and asylees abroad, and I was working in a famine in East Africa. So a crisis in getting just basic food staples to people. So I was watching people starve to death. And besides just the politics around that, one of the major hurdles in getting, life-saving food supplies was mismanagement of the budgets. So, we really saw like managing the finances and resources, which is accounting, has a actual life impact on people in the world. And I felt immediately called then, like, I need to know how to go do this better or get further education so I can just speak to this more appropriately. And that was really when I first thought, like, hey, maybe I should start looking at this more realistically as a pivot, or at least go get further education in this area.
Mm-hmm. And so that's what you did, obviously. Did you have to go back and kind of like readjust and a completely new degree and all of that? Is that what
So first I thought, well, I'll take a community college class, right? So I have my degree from GW, and I was like, I'm not ready to jump back into GW prices to explore this interest. I said, let me try Montgomery College. And so I did. I took, the first accounting class at Montgomery College, loved it, really connected with the professor. He still works with the IRS. We're still in touch all this time later. But he really showed me, how learning accounting applied to what I was doing and my passions, and that I really had like a knack for it, and should continue to pursue my interests. So it was really him that kind of helped stoke the fire, as well as seeing how, yes, I could actually, I mean, literally save lives by finding out how to manage resources better.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's talk about that for a second. I mean, this obviously is like the $64,000 question here, but what's the purpose or the why behind your work, right? I mean, um, what do you accomplish by doing what you do?
So I really see my purpose, and being a CPA and now being CFO, like I really feel like proper administration of financial resources like touches day-to-day lives. And those lives are the people that work at ATD currently, like making sure their paychecks and benefits are covered, but also working at nonprofits, like the stewardship of resources affects lives. And right now, my why is to make sure students at community colleges get the resources they need to better graduation rates. And I feel like I personally touch that by making sure we administer resources well at ATD.
Are there any, and no is a perfectly fine answer here, but are there any like specific examples you can point to of, hey, because of what I do or because of what this profession does, this happened to this person, or, I don't know what the case might be there, but
Well, the biggest, most direct impact is we have a scholarship fund, in which, students at community colleges submit based on all over the US, whatever their story is, and we give them scholarship resources in order to fund their education and allow them to share their stories at our conference and a number of different outlets so they can get more scholarship resources. So really trying to highlight student success stories and get that message out there, like of the impact of community colleges in America.
what's the most gratifying part of your job, would you say?
Um, I'm such a nerd at heart, so I love getting into the income statement and the balance sheet and looking at the cash balances and looking at where we are in our temp restricted, and like I just personally enjoy managing those budgets and knowing that they're going for the right resources. And like I said, like taking the ethical part of it, I really, make sure that things are adhered to according to the guidelines and making sure resources are used wisely.
Mhm.
Because I do want them to go to impact the field rather than, possibly going to things that I think are not bettering what the final usage should be. I don't know if that was a succinct answer,
Yeah.
but that kind of is why I got here, right? Like not
Mhm.
seeing that beans and rice going to families. Like it's important to me to make sure those resources are managed effectively and get to the right places.
Absolutely. Um, if and this may be something that you've encountered, but if you were faced with a high school or college student, who's struggling to, kind of figure out what they want to do or what they, want to study or what path they want to take, what would you tell them about accounting?
I mean, if I look back to my high school self, like I was very driven to be the change I wanted to see in the world. Like I really was focused on I want to make the world a better place. And I studied Japanese, I lived abroad, I worked in international development, but it all came back to financial management, which was accounting and being a CPA and being a financial steward. So to be that change that I wanted to see, I felt like the strongest point I could make was not to be on the ground making the day-to-day decisions, but to manage the resources. And I could do that really anywhere in the world. So it doesn't have to be just the forward facing role of being there in person. You can make just as much or even a bigger impact of managing the resources well from the accounting side. And I think that goes unnoticed. And I wish I would have known that as my high school self. And I hope others hear that and really get excited about getting into accounting to make that impact.
It's really, I mean, one of the one of the more unique career paths that you can take, in that, I mean, any any kind of business or work that you can possibly imagine, right, has some type of accounting or finance function attached to it, right? And so the opportunities to make a difference in something that you are personally passionate about are almost limitless. I mean, really, when you think about it,
It really is. And I think, so many people that want to change the world and make it a better place. It's like you get excited, you get out there, but then when you're out there, like you can only do as much as the budgets will allow, right? So I wanted to know, how can I impact the budgets? That was either through development and fundraising, but behind that was telling a story with, what have we already done with the money? Like, how have we utilized the prior funds, and how can we show effective utilization of future funds? And that's really where you can drive further development and bringing in further resources into the company. And I think a lot of people don't see it from that angle, but that's really a lot of where the buck starts and stops, right? In order to get the resources you need to make that impact on the ground.
what do you like to do for fun?
So I think, what makes me unique as a CPA is my triathlon, so competing as a triathlete, like being an athlete and a CFO, we're not all at home crunching numbers at night, we're out there having exciting lives, as well as, leading in finance. So
How many triathlons have you done?
So I have done 3 half Ironmans,
Wow.
and I'm training for my first Ironman in October. So I train 6 days a week, very heavily involved. And, through triathlon, I have met a lot of other CPAs and CFOs that are also competing out there as competitive athletes, on top of being, CPAs and CFOs. So that we are out there and, making that new face for the profession as well in a different way.
That's fantastic. The Ironman, is that the one that's held in Hawaii? Am I correct in
So
saying?
that's if you get a qualifying time. So maybe I'm coming out the gates, but yeah, you have to qualify for that one. But there are like 7 races throughout the US that feed into that if you get a qualifying time to get there.
How do you how do you to me it would seem like the hardest part of a triathlon would be the mental aspect of it. Like just keeping your mind sharp enough to endure that length of physical activity. I mean, how do you is there a trick involved to that, or how do you do that? Beyond just the physical aspect, how do you keep yourself mentally sharp enough to go that distance?
Yeah, you are correct. They say like competing is more mental endurance than physical endurance most of the times. And I find it applies right to my role as CFO as well, right? Because we're troubling, like, especially during COVID, right? Like how we were going to manage all the turmoil. I use it a lot, having done a lot of systems implementation. There are times when it's just not working, it's getting dark, it's dragging on forever, people
Mhm.
are getting tired. It's like parallels triathlon to this role and the mental endurance.
Mhm.
And definitely, I think, for me, it's a self-care thing, but also triathlon and the mental endurance, you have to be able to focus on prayer and meditation for me during that time to really be able to have the fortitude to keep going. So I think I wouldn't be as good of a CFO without triathlon. And I don't know if I'd be as good of a triathlete without being a CFO, right? Because really those two fuel each other. So it's been a great outlet to just kind of have balance with the pressure at work and have kind of offset to that.